What would you do if the stars themselves began to die? One by one, across the night sky, suns vanish, devoured by something no weapon can touch, no fleet can outrun. Humanity stands on the edge of extinction, facing an enemy that eats light itself. But when all hope fades, one admiral makes an impossible choice: to turn our own sun into the final weapon. The battle for Sol will decide if our species burns or becomes the fire that saves us all. Join us as we uncover humanity's last stand against the dark beyond the stars. Section 1. The Vanishing Stars. It began in silence. No impact, no explosion, just the absence of light. The first reports came from the frontier observatories of the Helion Reach, where miners and astronomers watched entire constellations wink out as if someone had drawn a curtain across the void. At first, they blamed faulty telescopes, then sensor interference, then panic. But when the Eridan system vanished, 7 inhabited worlds gone in less than a minute, humanity finally understood. Something was consuming the stars themselves. Across the solar accord, transmissions filled the deep band spectrum. Analysts called it stellar implosion. The term didn't fit. What the sensors recorded was not collapse, but conversion. Energy and mass twisting into dense spheres of frozen light, still orbiting where their suns had once burned. They hung like cold embers in the dark, each one emitting a faint pulse, rhythmic, deliberate. A signal. Admiral Sera Vance stared at one such pulse on the tactical holomap inside the Earth Defense Command. She'd seen war before, but nothing like this. The echo of each pulse matched the energy signature of a gravitational singularity, contained, controlled, and moving. Someone, somewhere, had learned to weaponize gravity itself. The intelligence reports named it the Skybreaker Armada. Every colony within 12 light years began emergency evacuation. It didn't help. The Skybreakers advanced through folded space, bypassing worm gates and intercept grids. Entire fleets disappeared mid-jump. Planetary governors transmitted their final logs as the sky above them folded inward, stars bending into impossible geometries before extinguishing. The news feeds on Earth stopped counting casualties. The numbers no longer meant anything. What mattered now was Sol, the last star still burning in the invasion corridor. Humanity's birthplace, the last line of light. Within the command chamber, Vance listened to the cacophony of distant voices, Jovian admirals calling for retreat, Martian generals demanding isolation, Terran diplomats debating surrender. Every faction had its own plan for survival. None involved unity. She silenced them with a single order: patch me to all command frequencies. When the channel opened, she spoke calmly, each word measured against the weight of extinction. Listen well. We've run before. We've survived the void, the plagues, the AI wars. But this time, there is nowhere to run. The stars themselves are dying. If Sol falls, we fall. Every ship, every outpost, every human breath ends here. So we will not run. We will fight until there's nothing left to burn but us. Her words echoed through the network like a beacon. Across the fractured solar defense, voices answered back, hesitant at first, then resolute. One by one, the scattered fleets began to align their signatures under a single identifier: Aegis Concord. The age of division was over. Humanity's last war had begun. Please do press that like button if you have enjoyed this story so far. That would mean a lot to me. Now back to the story. Section 2. The Last Line of Light. The reconstruction of Earth's defense grid began within hours of Vance's broadcast. What remained of humanity's great fleets, Terran strike cruisers, Martian siege carriers, Jovian particle barges, assembled in high orbit, forming an armada that shimmered like a ring of silver around the planet. For the first time in centuries, every nation and colony transmitted under one encrypted frequency. The Concord had formed not out of faith, but out of necessity. Admiral Vance stood aboard the flagship Resolute, its command deck a cathedral of glass and holographic light. The ship was a relic from the old AI wars, refitted for command operations. Around her floated hundreds of officers and technicians, moving through the low-gravity bridge like drifting constellations. Below their feet, Earth turned slowly, vast and blue and fragile. Dr. Cade Moreland, chief physicist of the Concord, arrived with the data she had been dreading. He carried it like a verdict. The Skybreakers will reach the heliopause in 12 days. We have no weapons capable of piercing their gravitational hulls. Every kinetic strike dissolves before contact. And energy weapons? Bent, refracted. It's like firing light into a mirror that eats the reflection. Vance studied the projection of the enemy fleet. Millions of vessels orbiting a dark core, all synchronized to the same gravitational rhythm. The image rippled as if space itself were alive. "What powers them?" she asked. Moreland hesitated. "A black hole. Not natural. Fragmented. Somehow stabilized." She turned away from the display. "Then we'll have to break physics too." The command council erupted in argument. Some wanted to flee to the inner colonies. Others proposed surrender, hoping the Skybreakers might ignore humanity if Soul's energy was offered freely. But Vance knew the truth. Predators didn't bargain. They consumed. When she revealed her plan, the room fell silent. "Project Singularity Lance," she said. "The old weapons buried beneath Luna's dark side. We decommissioned them after the AI uprising. They're unstable," Moreland warned. "Even a single misfire could collapse the moon's orbit." "They're all we have," Vance replied, "and I will not let our star die unarmed." The decision fractured the council. Mars protested, fearing another doomsday weapon. Jupiter refused to divert resources. But on Earth, the people rallied. Construction yards roared back to life. Foundries reignited. For the first time in generations, the human species remembered how to act as one. In the following days, Vance watched from orbit as vast launch platforms assembled over the moon. The Singularity Lances were monstrous orbital accelerators capable of firing miniature black holes at near-light velocity. They were built in an era when humanity feared its own creations. Now, they would become its last hope. Moreland approached her on the bridge as the final array came online. "You understand what this means?" he said quietly. "If the Skybreaker's core reacts to the Lances, it could destabilize Soul itself." Vance met his eyes. "Then we stand at the edge together. Better to burn with purpose than fade without meaning." Outside the viewport, the first lance powered up. A ripple of light arced across the lunar surface, brighter than dawn. The Resolute's sensors registered its activation code across every fleet channel. Humanity had drawn its line. 12 days until the end of the world. If you have enjoyed this story so far, then please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to listen to more stories like this one. Let's get back to the story now. Section 3. The Light Eaters. The Skybreaker Armada entered the Oort cloud like a storm of black fire. Sensors across the solar frontier lit up with gravitational anomalies, each one distorting space as if the universe itself were breathing unevenly. When the first images arrived from deep-range drones, no one spoke. The alien fleet was vast, beyond comprehension, spanning millions of kilometers in fractal formations that shimmered like liquid shadow. Each vessel orbited a dark heart, a sphere so dense it bent light into looping ribbons. The void itself seemed to recoil from their passage. Vance watched the feed from the Resolute's observation deck as the Skybreakers consumed the light of distant comets. Their gravitational fields tore ice apart molecule by molecule, converting it into plasma that disappeared into their core reactors. They weren't just destroying matter, they were feeding. The Concord's first offensive line was positioned near Pluto, a network of orbital mines and rail batteries manned by volunteers from the outer colonies. They had no illusions about survival. When the Skybreakers breached the perimeter, the human fleet opened fire, kinetic slugs, fusion torpedoes, and singularity test rounds. Every shot vanished before impact. Seconds later, the outer line went silent. The tactical feed showed nothing but expanding shadows. Space itself looked wrong, stars bending inward, signals scattering like whispers in a hurricane. On the Resolute's command bridge, Dr. Moreland stared at the readouts. "They're refracting mass," he said. "Our projectiles aren't destroyed, they're displaced. Each impact folds into another dimension, absorbed by the core." "Can we counter it?" Vance asked. He hesitated, not with brute force, but I'm seeing harmonic echoes in their gravitational signature. It's rhythmic, structured, almost synchronized with Sol's natural frequency. Vance turned toward him. "You're saying they're connected to the sun?" "Not connected," Moreland said softly. "Anchored. Their power source might be drawing directly from Sol's field lines. That's why they're heading here. Our star is their next meal." Outside, the alien fleet advanced. The dark core pulsed once, sending a wave through the heliosphere that made every human ship's hull groan. Instruments shorted out, magnetic fields reversed, and light itself flickered. For a heartbeat, the sun dimmed. Humanity's cradle shuddered. Across the fleet, panic broke out. Communications fractured as the Skybreaker's interference spread through every channel. Vance overrode the network with her command key, her voice calm and unwavering. "Hold formation. If they feed on light, then we fight in shadow. Shut down all primary emissions. Go dark." Within minutes, the Aegis Concord vanished from enemy sensors. Thousands of human ships drifted silent, their hulls absorbing the dim glow of Sol. It was an old tactic from the early space wars. Hide among the debris, let the enemy overextend. Moreland's voice trembled. "If their core is linked to Sol, we could overload them by destabilizing the sun's magnetic field. But the energy required is in the lances," Vance finished. "We don't just fight them, we turn the star against them." The Skybreaker Armada continued its march inward, devouring the last light of the outer system. Humanity's fleets followed silently behind, preparing the unthinkable. The war for Sol had begun. Section 4. The Solar Gambit. The Command Council met one final time aboard the Resolute. Outside, Earth hung beneath them like a memory, blue, fragile, and unaware of how close the universe had come to forgetting it. The room was silent except for the hum of the holographic displays, projecting the alien armada's steady advance through the void. Every simulation ended the same way. Sol extinguished, humanity erased. Dr. Moreland stood at the center of the chamber, his voice steady despite the fatigue in his face. The Skybreaker's power isn't infinite. Their core amplifies Sol's gravity field to extract energy. If we reverse that polarity, their systems will implode. Admiral Vance's gaze sharpened. "And how do we reverse a star?" Moreland hesitated, then brought up a model of the sun's magnetic lines, twisting like golden serpents. "We use them. The singularity lances can distort these lines if fired in synchronized bursts. The resulting wave will trigger a coronal hyperflare, focused, directional. It could collapse their core back into Sol's gravity well." Silence fell. Everyone in the room understood what that meant. Firing the lances would unleash a solar eruption powerful enough to scorch the entire inner system. The fleets guiding the alignment would have to operate from inside the corona itself, within the sun's furnace. No ship had ever survived that. Commander Ilian of Mars broke the stillness. "It'll kill everyone out there." Vance didn't look away from the simulation. "It'll kill everyone if we don't." Arguments rose, then faded. The plan was insanity, but it was also the only chance left. Across the Council's projection field, the words Operation Dawnfire appeared in crimson light. Humanity's final gambit had a name. Within hours, transmissions spread across the system. The call went out for every available ship, every drone, every pilot who could still fight. Shipyards reignited along the Martian equator. The Jovian moons sent fuel convoys through shattered gates. Old enemies spoke again, bound not by trust but by extinction's shadow. On Luna, the Singularity lances rose from their craters, colossal spears of tungsten and superconductive alloy. Their barrels glowed faintly, resonating with quantum particles that bent gravity itself. No one had seen them active in 100 years. They were outlawed for good reason. Vance stood before the viewing deck as the Resolute aligned toward the sun. "The lances will need precision," she said quietly. "Each strike must fall in perfect rhythm with Sol's heartbeat." Morla nodded. "And that rhythm is dying. We'll have to guide it ourselves." The Admiral allowed herself a thin smile. "Then let's remind the universe that we still have a pulse." In the darkness between Earth and Mercury, the Aegis Concord assembled into formation. The sun ahead of them shimmered with distorted light, its surface roiling like a storm waiting to break. Humanity was about to enter the furnace and turn the star itself into a weapon. Section 5. Into the Fire. The fleets began their descent toward the sun. At first, the light was distant, gentle, golden, almost peaceful. But as the Armada crossed Mercury's orbit, the glow became unbearable. Radiation alarm screamed. Hull plating rippled and reformed in real time as heat shields strained to hold integrity. The ships of the Aegis Concord pushed deeper, their shadows etched against the brilliance of Sol like insects daring a furnace. Admiral Vance stood at the Resolute's viewport, the sun filling every direction. "Helm, reduce distance by 0.1 astronomical unit. Keep the magnetic dampers stable." The bridge officers moved in silence, focused, eyes shining with reflected fire. Beyond them, the enemy waited. The Skybreaker Armada emerged from folded space ahead, an ocean of darkness spilling into the light. Each alien vessel glimmered like obsidian glass, their surfaces absorbing radiation rather than reflecting it. At their center loomed the core, a black sphere surrounded by rings of luminous debris, rotating in unnatural harmony. Every turn bled gravity. "Targeting arrays locked," said the tactical officer. "Hold fire," Vance replied. "We draw them closer first." Across the fleet, captains echoed her restraint. Humanity's ships formed a layered wedge, moving directly toward the sun's corona. They had no illusions about escape. Their task was to hold the line long enough for the lances to charge. Minutes passed. The temperature outside climbed beyond measurable limits. Within the Resolute's hull, air shimmered. Sweat evaporated instantly. Yet the crew did not falter. Every heartbeat carried purpose. Every motion was final. Dr. Moreland's voice came through the comm, "Lance batteries at 70%. If we can synchronize with the magnetic peak, the flare will converge on the core. And if it misses, then we'll tear a hole straight through Sol." The alien fleet moved first. Thousands of gravitational lances erupted from their formation, invisible until they struck. Ships vanished without sound, folded into collapsing pockets of space. The Resolute shuddered, alarms flaring red. "Evasive pattern Delta 9. Vance ordered. Through the glare, she watched a Martian cruiser disintegrate, its hull stretched into ribbons before disappearing into nothing. Still, the Concord advanced. The sun loomed like an open wound, the corona flaring around them in arcs of molten gold. Humanity had stepped inside the fire, and the Skybreakers followed. Section 6. The Burning Line. The corona was chaos. Rivers of plasma flowed like oceans in storm, and humanity's ships moved within them, dark silhouettes gliding through waves of fire. The heat shields glowed white. Every hull screamed under the strain. Crews fought to keep engines stable as the temperature climbed beyond endurance. No simulation had ever prepared them for this. Admiral Vance stood in the center of the Resolute's bridge, watching the tactical display melt into static under solar interference. Only fragments of the fleet's formation remained visible, blips of light against the storm of radiation. "Status of the lances?" she asked. "Charging sequence at 83%, Moreland reported over comms. "If we hold another 4 minutes, we'll have enough to initiate the flare. And if we can't, then Sol dies with us." The Skybreaker Armada pressed in. Their weapons tore through plasma streams, carving tunnels of darkness through the sun's light. Each strike distorted gravity, pulling ships out of orbit, crushing them against invisible walls. Human cruisers countered with rail volleys and fusion torpedoes. Nothing slowed the advance. On the Resolute, impact warnings filled the air. A shockwave rolled through the hull as a nearby destroyer imploded, its fragments scattering like shrapnel through the void. Vance gripped the railing, holding her ground as gravity fluctuated between weightless drift and crushing force. "Keep firing. Don't give them the sun without a fight." Across the fleet, captains echoed her defiance. Martian gunners overloaded their cannons until coils melted. Jovian carriers launched drone wings into the Corona, each one a spark of metal and courage. The aliens devoured them all, but the swarm slowed. Moreland's voice broke through the static. "We're almost at synchronization. Their core is reacting. The resonance is climbing." On the main display, the Skybreaker heart pulsed faster, its gravity field thrumming with Sol's rhythm. It was feeding greedily, unaware it was being drawn toward its death. "Signal all ships," Vance said. "Prepare for ignition." Her crew exchanged brief, silent looks. They knew what was coming. None hesitated. Outside, the Corona brightened, its flares coiling around the fleet like living serpents. The lances along Luna aligned with Sol's magnetic poles, their barrels humming with unstable power. Humanity's final weapon was ready. Vance whispered to herself, "Hold the line a little longer." And then, to the fleet, Aegis Concord, ignite the sun. Section 7, Dawnfire. The first Singularity lance fired. A beam of darkness erupted from the moon, invisible except for the ripple it carved through space. A second followed, then a third. Each shot lanced into Sol's Corona, twisting magnetic fields into spirals that churned like storms made of light. Within minutes, the sun changed. Its surface convulsed, flares rising higher, burning white. On the Resolute's bridge, the light dimmed to pure gold. Every surface gleamed. "Magnetic distortion is stable," Moreland reported. "The flare's trajectory is forming. We just need to hold it." "Then we hold," Vance said, her voice quiet, firm. The Skybreaker Armada reacted instantly. The alien core pulsed, sending out waves of gravity that cracked nearby ships like glass. Entire squadrons vanished as their orbits collapsed. The fleet's formation shattered, but humanity did not retreat. They tightened the noose, drawing the enemy closer to the sun's unstable field. The solar flare's buildup reached critical mass. Arcs of plasma stretched millions of kilometers outward, encasing both fleets in a luminous cage. The Resolute's shield screamed. Deck plates warped. The heat outside was beyond measure, but the crew pressed on. Vance watched a Martian carrier spiral into the Corona, its final transmission a burst of static that ended midward. She forced herself not to look away. "Every second they buy counts," she said. Moreland's hands trembled over his console. "If we fire the final sequence now, the flare will release before full collapse. What happens if we wait?" He looked up. "We burn." Vance gave the order. "Then we wait." The alien core brightened, lines of white fire racing across its surface. The Skybreakers concentrated their power, hurling their gravitational beams toward the lances orbiting Luna. Space rippled as if tearing apart. One lance exploded, then another. The final two held barely. "Flux threshold reached," Moreland shouted. "We're past containment." Vance nodded once, then let it break. The synchronized lances fired together. A soundless shockwave erupted from Sol's heart, a surge of light so intense it bent time for an instant. The solar flare ignited in full, racing outward like a tidal wave of fire. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Then the sun roared. Section 8. The Heart of the Sun. The solar flare struck like the birth of a god. Every sensor went blind. Radiation flooded the spectrum, drowning communications across the fleet. The Resolute's hull screamed as magnetic fields surged, bending its metal bones like clay. The crew clung to stations while arcs of static leapt across the bridge, white fire crawling along the walls. In that moment, there was no sound, only the endless vibration of light. Through the chaos, Admiral Vance forced her eyes open. Outside, the sun was no longer a sphere of fire. It was alive, raging, folding upon itself. Rivers of plasma rose in towers thousands of kilometers high, twisting into a single point above the surface where the Skybreaker core hung trapped, unable to retreat. Its gravity flared in protest, devouring debris and fragments of its own fleet as it struggled to escape the storm it had helped create. "Status of the Lances," she shouted. Moreland's reply was half static. 2 destroyed, 1 disabled, but the last is still firing. The field's focusing. Sol's polarity is reversing. The realization hit them all at once. The flare was turning inward. The sun itself was pulling the Skybreaker core down. Vance steadied herself against the console. "All ships, break formation. Move clear of the equatorial field. I want every vessel out of the kill zone." No one moved fast enough. The gravity spike reached them first. Human and alien ships alike were dragged toward the flare's column, tumbling end over end into the storm. The Resolute's engines roared, fighting to maintain distance, but space around them folded like a whirlpool. Moreland's voice was raw. "The sun's field is fracturing. If the core collapses too deep, it'll take Sol with it." Vance stared into the conflagration. The Skybreaker core pulsed one last time, its surface cracking open to reveal a lattice of impossible geometry, a structure built to consume suns. Now it was being eaten alive by one. "Helm," she said quietly, "plot us straight into the corona." The officer hesitated. "Admiral, that's suicide." "I know, but if we can guide the collapse manually, maybe we can contain it." The Resolute was built for command, not retreat. Moreland met her gaze. "You'll never come back." "No," she said softly, "but maybe the light will." She keyed the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Vance. The sun fights with us now. Pull back to safe orbit and keep your eyes open. Whatever happens next, remember it." Then she turned to her crew. "Take us in." The Resolute descended into the storm, its hull glowing white as the corona embraced it. Behind them, the Skybreaker Armada shattered. The alien ships lost cohesion, their gravitational lattices collapsing under Sol's fury. The black core writhed, dragged downward, screaming without sound. At the edge of the flare, the Resolute vanished into light. Section 9. The Falling Core. The Resolute plunged through the corona like a blade through molten glass. Outside, the sun was madness, a cyclone of light and gravity, plasma curling in impossible loops around the dying alien core. The ship's shields disintegrated within seconds. Hull plating melted into streaks of vapor. Every surface glowed red. Yet through it all, the engines roared, dragging the ship deeper toward the flare's epicenter where the Skybreaker heart was falling. Admiral Vance stood at the forward viewport, her silhouette carved in gold. "Bring the reactor to full burn," she ordered. "Divert all non-essential power to stabilizers." Moreland staggered beside her, his voice ragged. "If we release that much energy, the core will lock onto us. We'll be pulled in first." She gave him a faint smile. "That's the point." The Resolute's fusion drives ignited, cutting through the plasma currents. On every deck, crew members worked in silence. No one spoke of survival anymore. Their purpose was clear: to anchor the collapsing gravity long enough for the flare to consume the enemy. Through fractured sensors, the Skybreaker core loomed ahead. It was no longer smooth and perfect. Cracks radiated across its surface, glowing with streams of blue-white energy. Fragments of its fleet orbited it like shards of a broken mirror. Each pulse sent waves of distortion through space, bending the light of the sun into spirals that twisted around the Resolute's hull. Moreland watched the readouts climb toward critical. Their core is destabilizing, but the pull's increasing. We're being dragged past event threshold. Hold course, Vance said. If it takes us with it, then we go together. The alien sphere expanded, tendrils of gravity unfurling like roots through fire. For a moment, Vance felt a strange stillness, an awareness pressing against her thoughts, vast and cold. The Skybreakers were not mindless conquerors. They were collectors, devourers of light and memory. She felt them reach for her, offering surrender through silence. She refused. "Transmit all power to the flare modulation grid," she said. "When I give the signal, detonate the drive." Moreland hesitated, then nodded. Understood. The Resolute closed the distance. Every alarm screamed. The hull began to disintegrate layer by layer. The stars beyond the sun's light vanished, leaving only a tunnel of radiance leading straight into the collapsing core. Vance keyed the fleet channel one last time. "This is the Resolute. We're inside the breach. Continue firing the lances. Don't stop until the core falls." Her voice broke through the static like a heartbeat across the void. "For every star they stole, make this one count." And with that, she cut the transmission. Ahead, the alien core fractured completely, opening like a flower made of darkness. Section 10, the star that fought back. The Resolute reached the event horizon of the Skybreaker core and stopped being a ship. Metal screamed, vaporized, and reformed into light. Yet its purpose, its signal, endured. The ship's reactor flared beyond containment, releasing a torrent of charged plasma that merged with Sol's rising storm. For a heartbeat, the Resolute and the sun became one. Across the system, the flares surged outward, brighter than anything humanity had ever seen. Observatories on Mars and Titan went blind. Every magnetic compass in the colonies reversed. The sky over Earth turned white at noon. The sun roared like a living thing. In the inferno, Admiral Vance felt time stretch thin. The world slowed to a single note, the deep, thrumming pulse of gravity collapsing and rebounding. She saw the Skybreaker core unravel, its structure peeling apart like petals torn by the wind. Inside its hollow heart, a lattice of singularities fused into a single point, dragging its own fleet into annihilation. Moreland's final words echoed faintly across the burning bridge. "We did it. Sera, we did it." Then even his voice was gone, devoured by light. The explosion rippled through space, warping the corona into a vast spiral that hurled plasma outward faster than thought. The Skybreaker Armada broke apart. Their ships, those colossal engines of collapse, folded inward, crushed by the gravity they had mastered. One by one, they imploded into nothing. From the outer system, the surviving human fleets witnessed it in silence. To them, the sun appeared to bloom, its corona expanding into radiant wings that engulfed the sky. For a moment, it seemed alive, striking back against its devourers with the fury of 1,000 ages. When the light reached Earth, transmission relays caught a final signal from the Resolute's beacon, a fragment of a voice, distorted but clear enough to echo across every listening channel. "We are the fire that answers the dark. Let it remember us." And then, nothing. The flare lasted 17 minutes. When it faded, Sol shone cleaner, stronger, its surface glowing with newborn brilliance. The darkness that had consumed the frontier stars began to dissipate. Across deep space, suns long thought dead flickered back to life, their light returning through the void. In the silence that followed, humanity's survivors realized they had not merely fought for a star. They had reignited it. The Skybreaker Armada was gone. The black core had fallen. And in its place, Sol burned anew, not as a victim, but as a weapon reborn. Section 11. The Ash of Victory. For hours after the flare, no one spoke. The surviving fleets drifted in silence, their comms flooded with static from Sol's renewed fury. Space, once torn by the Skybreaker's gravity, slowly began to settle. Where there had been darkness, there was now only light, wild, brilliant, untamed. The Aegis Concord had lost 2/3 of its strength. Every remaining ship bore scars, cracked hulls, melted armor, systems burnt to glass. Yet they held formation around the sun as if guarding it, unable to believe what they were seeing. Sol burned brighter than it had in centuries, its chromosphere alive with ribbons of gold and violet. The star was singing, a deep magnetic hum resonating through every sensor array. On the command carrier Vigilant, temporary flagship of the survivors, Commander Ilian watched the sun's corona ripple like a heartbeat. Her voice trembled as she opened fleet-wide broadcast. Confirmed visual. The Skybreaker Armada is gone. Their signal has ceased. The words hung in the air, unbelievable even to her. We've won. The bridge crew didn't cheer. They simply stared. Victory felt too heavy to lift. For so long, humanity had defined itself by survival, by struggle against extinction, by endurance in the face of the void. No one had imagined what it would mean to finally end the threat. Status of the Resolute, Ilian asked quietly. A technician looked up from his console. No trace. Only residual plasma where the flare originated. It's like she became part of the sun. Ian closed her eyes. Then she's still with us. Across the system, fragments of Admiral Vance's final transmission replayed on civilian channels. It became a beacon, rebroadcast by every surviving relay. We're the fire that answers the dark. The phrase spread faster than any order, uniting colonies, outposts, and ships across light minutes of space. Humanity, scattered and wounded, found itself bound again by her voice. Weeks passed before communication stabilized. The Concorde reassembled at the edge of Mercury's orbit, their surviving ships forming a silent memorial ring around Sol. The flare's energy had reshaped the sun's magnetic lattice, stabilizing it against further decay. Sol had not weakened, it had evolved. Dr. Moreland's apprentices analyzed the data he left behind. The readings suggested the Skybreaker's collapse had triggered a quantum feedback between the sun's magnetic core and human technology. In destroying them, humanity had strengthened its own star. The implication was staggering. Sol had learned to defend itself. No one could explain it. No one needed to. Commander Ilian addressed the gathered fleet. Admiral Vance once said that unity isn't built by peace, but by shared defiance. We've proven her right. Every ship here stands because of those who chose to burn for us. In the silence that followed, the sun flared once more, softly, almost as if in salute. The war was over, but the dawn had only begun. Section 12. Dawn Beyond Fire. Months passed before humanity truly understood what it had done. The sun, once dying and dim, now burned with a deeper hue, its surface shimmering with spectral veins of blue-white light. Astrophysicists called it a rejuvenation event. Poets called it rebirth. To the survivors of the Aegis Concord, it was something simpler, proof that they had endured. Earth's skies were different now. The auroras glowed further south, painting the horizon in gold. Satellites traced new orbits to compensate for Sol's altered gravity. The air itself carried faint magnetic pulses that resonated in long-range instruments, a heartbeat echoing across space. Humanity had remade its own star. From the outer colonies came word of a miracle. The systems that had gone dark, the ones thought consumed by the Skybreakers, were returning. Their suns reignited one by one, faint but growing stronger, as if the death of the alien core had released the light it had stolen. The galaxy, for the first time in decades, was getting brighter. Atop the rebuilt Command Citadel in orbit above Earth, the Concord convened. Commander Ilian stood where Admiral Vance once had, before the great observation pane that looked down on the living world below. Her voice carried across every colony and outpost linked to the Concord's channel. Today marks one solar year since the Skybreaker War ended. The fleets are returning home, the colonies rebuilt, and the light restored. But we cannot forget how it was won, not through vengeance nor conquest, but through the unity of every human world. We stood as one flame against the dark. Behind her, a holographic memorial filled the room. Names upon names, millions of them, the lost of the Aegis Concord. At its center burned a single symbol, the crest of the Resolute. Below it, in silver script, Admiral Vance's final words. "We are the fire that answers the dark." Crowds on Earth and Mars gathered to watch the broadcast. For the first time in living memory, there were no flags, only one emblem, a sun split by a rising spear of light, the mark of the new solar union. From the Jovian moons came miners turned builders. From Mars came engineers. From the belt came navigators. Humanity began constructing something vast, a monument and a promise. In orbit around Mercury, the remnants of the Singularity lances were fused into a colossal ring that shimmered with captured solar energy. It would serve as both memorial and defense array, a living barrier of light called the Dawnforge. When completed, its first ignition mirrored a sunrise across the system. Solar winds scattered through its fields, refracting into beams that stretched beyond Neptune. For the first time, light from Sol reached the frontier colonies faster than any transmission. It was as if the sun itself had decided that no human world would ever stand in darkness again. Ilian stood at the edge of the observation deck as the Dawnforge flared, tears catching the reflected glow. "We've made the star fight for us," she whispered. "Now we must prove worthy of its fire." Beyond the glass, Sol burned steady and strong, its corona still marked by faint arcs where the Resolute had fallen. They called it the Vance Scar, a wound that never closed, glowing with the same rhythm as a heartbeat. And so it was written in the deep black archives that in the final hour, when the light was fading, humanity did not kneel before the dark. They became the light instead. The Skybreaker Armada was gone, but their echo remained. A reminder that even in the vast indifference of the cosmos, there existed one species that refused to be silent, that turned extinction into sunrise. Please do press that like button if you have enjoyed this story, and also please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to listen to more stories like this one. That would mean a real lot to me. Now go ahead and listen to your next story here.